Hello, Man in Gray here with another Man in Gray book review. Today's book is The Whisky Cat by C.W. Nicole, translated from Japanese by the author and published in 2018. It's 68 pages long. C.W. Nicole was born in 1940 and died in 2020. He was a Welshman. As a teenager, he talked his way into joining an expedition to the North Pole. He eventually settled in Canada, where he worked for the fisheries department there. Then he moved to Ethiopia and became one of the very first game wardens at Ethiopia's big national park. After that, he moved to Japan, where he spent the rest of his life. He became a full-time writer there and wrote scripts for Japanese television. He wrote a regular newspaper column and over 100 books. And he became a black belt in karate and became a well-known environmental activist, fighting for protecting Japanese forests. This particular book, The Whisky Cat, has kind of an interesting backstory to it. One day, Nicole was listening to a bunch of Japanese businessmen brag about their expertise in whiskey. And he realized that they didn't know anything about whiskey at all. They were just kind of making up, trying to impress each other. And so that gave him the idea of going to Scotland and writing a series of newspaper articles about how Scottish distilleries make their whiskey, because each one has a different technique and a different recipe. And he was able to talk his newspaper publisher into letting him go. And so he went to Scotland with a photographer and toured a whole bunch of distilleries. And one thing he noticed on his tour is that they all had cats at the distillery. And these weren't strays. These were cats that lived at the distillery. They were considered employees. They had somebody in charge of taking care of the cats, feeding them, and taking them to the vet when they needed to, because the cats were there to kill and chase off rats, because the rats were attracted to the barley, the smell of the fermenting barley, and of course they would contaminate the whiskey if they got into it. And because these are distilleries, they couldn't set out bait or poison to kill rats like you could in other situations. So they had to rely on cats. And so they all had these cats around these distilleries. And so when C.W. Nicole got back to Japan and wrote his articles, he thought, well, this would be a great story for a novel. And so he wrote this short children's novel called The Whisky Cat. And it's the story of a cat who works at a distillery, the Glengall Distillery in Scotland. And it's told in the first person from the cat's point of view. He tells his life story about how he was brought to the distillery as a kitten and taken under the wing of the head cat. Turns out the cats have a guild. They're like professional rat chasers. And the head cat is called Other Cat. And Other Cat acts as a mentor to our narrator and shows him the ropes and how to hunt rats and so forth. And then it goes through all the various adventures that this young tomcat has. He goes off into a meadow and gets shot at by a hunter who thinks he's a feral cat and gets injured, but he's taken to a vet, recovers from it, and he goes through various adventures hunting rats, and he finally faces his ultimate nemesis, this giant female rat who's been around for ages and who's gigantic. And then when the Other Cat dies, he takes over and becomes the head of the guild. So it's a fun story, and you learn a little bit about whiskey distilleries and the issues they have with rats and how the cats are treated. So it's a fun book for both children and adults. The Whisky Cat by C.W. Nicole. This has been another Man in Gray book review. Thanks for watching.